Hi, my name is Andrea Bacle, and my study is titled Ready But Not Able. It's a case study of the experiences of 3 adult learners repeatedly enrolled in high school equivalency preparation courses. The participants in this study were also specifically hoping to earn their GEDs. So I want to tell you about the problem, some of the literature review I conducted, my purpose within my framework and methodology. I'm going to tell you about my research questions. And then most importantly, the overview of findings, which will lead to the implications and my plan for distribution. So I looked at the Houston-Galveston Area Council. They provide a grant-funded program for 13 counties for adults to enroll in GED preparation courses. In 2019, you can see nearly 19,000 adults enrolled in a GED preparation course. However, only 706 earned their GEDs at the end of the year. Most people assume it's because, the students haven't mastered the content and they've failed the test. That's not true. We have a mid-70s% pass rate, pretty high. The problem is that at the end of these courses, very few students are taking the test for one of the 4 subsections of the GED, leaving us with a 3.72% earned GED rate. So I reviewed the literature from 3 different aspects. I wanted to make sure that I understood this GED student population within similar programs. What are their hurdles? What's preventing them from finishing? I wanted to look at their stages of self-development, specifically the ways that they're making meaning of this experience of being back in school. And then finally, this idea of transformative learning, this disequilibrium of saying that they want to earn the GEDs, but not doing what's required, taking the test. And I looked at academic anxiety, including math anxiety, and specifically self-efficacy. So my purpose was that I wanted to understand this contradictory academic choice, hopefully to help current and future GED hopeful students. So this led me to write the research questions. The first was, what is this experience of a GED student who takes at least 40 hours of preparation, but then decides to not take the test? And then the second question is, what were the underlying competing commitments, if there were any, that contributed to this forward momentum of work and preparation courses, but the halting by never taking the test? So this led me to using the theoretical framework of the constructive developmental theory by Professor Keegan. He looks at the meaning-making systems that people have. How are they making sense of how they operate in the world? He's got a list of 5 developmental stages and says that most adults fall within this socialized stage, the 3rd, or the self-authoring stage, number 4, or somewhere in between. So this led me to think about my research design. I wanted to conduct a qualitative case study because I wanted to create an in-depth analysis within a bounded system. I thought that would help me describe and then analyze this phenomenon of students preparing but not testing. So for the site, originally we were going to meet in person at the local community college where I teach GED preparation classes. But because of the pandemic, we pivoted and we conducted everything through phone calls and online interviews, which worked beautifully with data collection. So for my participants, I received IRB approval to find students in the same college where I teach, and I used purposive sampling. And so I started with 77 potential students who met this criteria of having completed at least 40 hours of preparation work, but without ever taking a single subsection of the test. So I conducted the data collection in 5 steps. So we had the preliminary meeting that helped me cull from the 77 down to the 3 who ultimately participated in all 5 steps, the 3 women. And we used these 5 steps to answer the 2 research questions. And then for analysis, I used thematic, framework, and cross case to see what was happening within each woman's data collection, and then looked across all 3 cases. The limitations. The first thing outside of my control is that I had some participants who wanted to participate in the research, But once the pandemic hit, they no longer had devices to be able to meet for online meetings. And then I also set the boundary of requiring students to have completed at least 40 hours for two reasons. One, that if they complete 40 hours, they're allowed to enroll in another course. And two, I believe the 40 hours showed grit and perseverance and their determination to move forward and earn this GED and to learn the content. And then for delimitations, I excluded students who had completed or had even taken any section of the GED because I wanted students who had been working so hard towards it, but still had been unable to take that first step of taking the first subsection. So now let me tell you about my findings. So I had three women. The first is Connie. So over the course of 20 years, you can see she's taken 3 classes, 120 hours. And through the data collection, we uncovered that her experience is that she's responsible for everyone and everything, which leads to a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety in her life. And so question 2, we found, yes, she's committed to earning the GED, but she's equally committed to never feeling incapable or unworthy. So if she imagines sitting down to take that test and she doesn't think that she can pass it, she's going to feel incapable and unworthy, not good enough, not smart enough. And so it makes sense that she would never take the test so she can prevent herself from feeling that way. Through the lens of the framework, she's transitioning away from the socialized stage. She's starting, and she said several bits of data that showed and demonstrated that she's moving away from the socialized stage to become an author of her own life and towards that self-authoring stage of development. Next is Alexia. So Alexia was pulled out of school in middle school, so nearly 40 years ago. She just recently, in the last year and a half, started taking classes again. She took 2 classes, nearly 94 hours, and showed significant gains across the board. Her teacher said she was ready. She still didn't take the test. Her experience is that, in her words, she's been experiencing a lifelong pity party. She's been feeling sorry for herself for being pulled out of school against her will, and she's been angry. She's been blaming her parents and her siblings and any family members who she says should have supported her and fought for her to be able to go back to school. While she's committed to earning the GED, she's equally committed to never feeling discouraged. She's felt discouraged for the last 40 years, and she doesn't want to feel that way anymore. So if she imagines sitting down and taking the test and she doesn't think she can get it 100% correct, she's going to feel discouraged. And so she's preventing herself from feeling that way. Through the lens of the framework, she's nearly in the self-authoring stage. And what was beautiful to witness is that in our interview, in the second half, she started asking the questions because she was reflecting in real time. Oh, is this why I've been acting this way? Is this why I've made these choices I've made? And it was really quite lovely to watch her transform in real time. Leaving my last participant, who is Eve. So you can see she's taken 9 classes, nearly 400 hours of work over the course of 20 years. Her experience is that she's always comparing herself to others, her peers in her class, her peers outside of class. She's comparing their situations with hers, and she's seeing herself as not good enough or smart enough. She's committed to earning the GED, but she's equally committed to never letting her family down. So what's interesting is that she is fully in the socialized stage, meaning she makes sense of how she operates in the world as how she fits into her social group. So she imagines that if she fails that test, she's letting everyone down. This is the truth that she's been operating by. This is her assumption. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a logical truth, but it's the truth that she's been operating under. She's fed up with taking classes. She doesn't want to do it anymore. At the same time, she still wants her GED. She wants it to just be here already. She doesn't want to do any more classes. So the commonalities between all 3 women is that things are hard. They're struggling. Life is hard. Work is hard. School is hard. And also, to varying degrees, this idea of not being enough. So several of the women said, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. So there's a lot of self-efficacy and a lot of negative self-critical talk too. The differences are that Connie is feeling guilt all the way back from dropping out in the first place to the guilt of working on schoolwork when she should be with her kids and vice versa. Alexia has been hanging on to this anger for 40 years, this resentment at the family around her. And Eve is in the middle of fear. She's so fearful that she's going to get figuratively kicked out of her tribe that she's never going to take the test. And I want you to look at this visual in the top left corner, because Keegan often describes this process as pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. We know that that doesn't get us anywhere. It just makes a lot of smoke. And so the smoke for these participants is stress and anxiety in their lives, the struggle. So the implications, I'd say that we need to move beyond technical fixes, like more money for programs or content. A lot of people say we need better content, better teachers. All the students, with the exception of one class for Connie, all the students at all their classes prepared them for the test. So I would argue that it's not the content that we need. We need to help so many future students by seeing where they are. When I say where they are they in the socialized stage? Are they in self-authoring? Or are they somewhere in between? And what's important is that if they're in the socialized stage, like Eve, they could react negatively if we as educators try to force them forward and they are comfortably in that stage. They could react negatively by dropping out, even more often than they are now. However, if they're closer to self-authoring, they may find this process fantastic. Connie and Alexia had a wonderful experience and said how much they enjoyed understanding the choices that they've been making. I will say the implications are, if we don't do any changes and we keep doing what we're doing, the status quo is never going to change. We're always going to have about a 4% earned GED rate. And then people like these women who don't have any sort of catalyst to help them thinking about changing will never earn their GEDs. So I want to create an overview and a summary and present it to the GED testing service. I've connected with President Green, the president of testing service, and she wants me to have a live meeting with her and 2 of her people in her marketing team, because I have told her that she's not yet aware of all the students. So for example, 2 of the 3 women had never even registered for GED through GED.com, and that is the process for earning the GED. So the GED testing service is unaware of thousands, perhaps millions of students who have never even registered, and they're stuck in this frozen system of moving forward to the classes but not taking the test. That the GED testing service doesn't even know about them. So 1, we have to find a way for them to learn who those students are, and then 2, we have to figure out how we're going to connect with those students and help them to move forward. So the materials I'm going to present within my presentation, a PDF with an overview and summary. So this is a brief list of references that I've used just for this presentation. And then finally, I want to say thank you. And I want to say that I hope I've honored the women who participated. I wanted to choose a qualitative study because I wanted to tell their stories, their beautiful stories, while trying to understand this phenomenon of this frozen process when we know what's bigger and what could come, but they're stuck in their current situation. So I thank you so much for your interest and supporting me. Thank you.